Hello, BookTube. I'm coming to you today with my very first discussion video. Long promised, long in the thinking, about Goodreads, the hub of all our reading experiences. uh, I think you'd have to be living under a rock in the 21st century not to know how central Goodreads is to the reading of so many people. A membership that's well over 20 million. That's just staggering. Publishers have taken note, authors have taken note, book suppliers have taken note. The whole industry knows about Goodreads. But and I myself have been a member since April of 2009, this month in 2009. Uh, but I've had problems with it pretty much the whole time. And joining BookTube really brought that forward in my mind and made me start thinking about it again. So, as in any case, I made a list of pros and cons. Uh, and they boil down to three apiece. For the pros, the first one would be community, which is absolutely undeniable. I mean, close to 30 million members. You're going to find plenty of people out there who are reading the same kinds of things you're reading or reading things you'd like to start reading. And that brings us to pro number two, which is interactivity. The Goodreads hosts thousands and thousands of groups and read-alongs and all sorts of things like that. That often provides bookish community for people who otherwise wouldn't have it, all over the world. And another thing they might lack is the third pro of Goodreads, which is guidance, book guidance. There are millions of reviews of almost every title you could think of. And I know the same thing is true of, Amazon, but with Goodreads there's a feel, illusory or not, of more personal, more approachable. After all, a lot of the people whose reviews will show up in your Goodreads page are your Goodreads friends, and you've studied their library and maybe had back and forth with them. And that means a lot more than, a reviewer for Amazon that may be a bot, for all you know. Although they exist on Goodreads in large numbers and are worth keeping an eye out for. And then we move on to the cons. The first one of which is that because Goodreads is so big, it is vulnerable to groupthink, to crowd thinking. And crowd thinking is always bad. It's a way to surrender your own volition, your own judgment, and that's never a good thing to do. And one of the ways you can tell that crowd thinking is so strong on Goodreads is the way it produces fads and clicks, which are also always bad. If you watch 24 booktubers and you click on their channels and their video starts, and behind them on the bookshelves are the same 8 authors, well, then you know that statistically speaking, according to the odds, there is simply no chance that those 24 booktubers came to those 8 authors on their own. Instead, that money and time and investment is the product of groupthink. It's the product of following fads. Which I would argue, because of their composite, their corporate nature, are antithetical to reading. Reading is the most personal and idiosyncratic thing that any of us can do. And so it shouldn't be true that, that I'm seeing Lee Bardugo and Sarah J. Maas and Cassandra Clare and Maggie Stiefvater on every single one of those 24 shelves, and many dozens more besides. I shouldn't be seeing that. It's antithetical to the spirit of exploration that is supposed to be at the heart of reading. Making up your own mind, figuring out what you like. Now, I realize that a lot of that is connected to the fact that a lot of Goodreads users are young and maybe, just don't have the reading experience to see what's out there. And also B, that a lot of readers, young and old, have no idea where to go for book guidance. To them, Goodreads and even groupthink is a blessing. It leads them to things they like. My argument would be that the process should be more complicated than that. It shouldn't be as easy as logging onto Goodreads and seeing what has the highest rating without knowing anything else about it. And that brings us to con number 2, which is that Goodreads is critically restrictive. It pigeonholes your books, and of course it has the infamous star rating system. I don't lost count of how many times I've listened to a booktuber talk about a book intelligently and passionately and with complex thoughts, and then wrap up their video by saying, I gave it 3.5 stars. I want to say to them, no, you didn't. You borrowed 3.5 stars as a rating system and an idea from somebody else. Somebody at Goodreads made it up. You didn't. I have no idea what it means. And no idea why you would pigeonhole your own thinking into somebody else's rating system. Now, rating systems, be they thumbs up or stars or Rotten Tomatoes, are inherently lazy anyway. That's not how you're supposed to critically evaluate anything. And you might say, well, I do critically evaluate things, but then I put the stars in to give people a shorthand. Well, some things shorthands are okay at, but other things, no. Reading, no. You don't want to look. Who in their right mind wants to look at somebody's rating of a book to determine whether or not they're going to buy it and spend time reading it? That's just... It's a con, in Steve's opinion. And the third con would be numerical. There's a lot of math involved in Goodreads. It's actually what stopped me from being a conscientious Goodreads user originally, was that you've got, slots to determine how many books you read and how many books in which genres you read and how much you read in any day or week or month or year, and there are page numbers and percentage points. It quantifies what should only ever be qualified. And I read a lot, and I got to the point where I was thinking, well, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. Have I logged on to Goodreads and updated it yet? It seems to me that too is antithetical to what I freely admit is the magic of reading. Even though I know that quite a few Goodreads users like it for that. They like the quantification. It helps them to keep their own reading past clearly in focus. But it's still a con. And as you can see, that brings us to 3 pros and 3 cons, which brings me right back to where I started. And unlike the last time I made a pro and con list for Goodreads, this time I have the rest of you. So I want to know how I should use Goodreads. You teach me. What should I ignore? What should I concentrate on? What would you like? Of course, I'd like all of you to be my Goodreads friends if we can make this work in a way that doesn't feel like a math exercise. And that also doesn't feel cookie cutter. Too much of Goodreads feels cookie cutter for what should be a gloriously multifarious experience every single time. So I'd love to hear it in the comments. I'd love to hear response videos. I want to know how you use Goodreads and how you want me to use Goodreads. How can we use it to be readers instead of just Goodreads members? And there, I'm gonna leave it with you. So feel free to leave comments. Feel free to make your own videos and let me know what you think. Thank you, BookTube.